All this time you've been trying to be heard, thinking the right words will finally make them listen. You explain. You justify. You apologize. You even lower your tone so you sound calmer, more agreeable, more manly in some pathetic hope that silence will be respected if it feels safe. But here's the truth. Silence only works when it's not trying to be liked. Most men go silent like a kicked dog, but the rare few those men sit in silence like it's a throne. And women, they feel it. It hits them like gravity. It changes the air in the room. The more you chase control, the more they ignore you. But when you are control, when your silence says, "I don't need you to get me," suddenly they lean in. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to become that man. You don't speak because you're unsure at first. You pause mid-sentence because you're trying to find the right word, the perfect tone, the one that will calm her or impress him. You hesitate because you're calculating your emotional risk, but she notices. He does too. They smell it: uncertainty masked as politeness, weakness dressed as restraint. You tell yourself you're being wise, being calm. But inside, you know the truth: you're avoiding rejection. Now imagine a different kind of silence. The kind that makes people wait for your words. The kind that turns heads when you enter, not because you're loud, but because you're undeniable. A silence that doesn't come from insecurity, but from total possession of self. You say nothing, and yet the room rearranges itself around your presence. She glances once, twice, 3 times. He suddenly watches his words around you. And you're not trying to manage anyone's perception. You're not performing emotional acrobatics for approval. You are silence. And silence like that dominates everything it touches. Let me show you what this looks like. You need to understand something most men never figure out. Dominance isn't loud. It's not a show of force. It's the absence of need. It's the refusal to fill the space with noise just to prove you exist. The weak man fears the void, so he over-explains, nervously jokes, or stares at his phone to escape it. The powerful man is the void. His stillness makes others move. His pause makes others rush to fill it. His calm makes them uncomfortable because in his silence, they hear themselves echo, exposed. Let me show you what this looks like. You're sitting at a dinner table. She's late. Again. She walks in, scrolling her phone, drops it face down beside her glass, and doesn't say sorry. She looks at you like she expects you to ask where she was. But you don't. You take a sip of your drink. She fills the silence with surface chatter. Crazy traffic. You know how it is. You nod. You don't smile. You don't react. Your stillness makes her nervous. She leans in, checks your face for clues, searching for your emotional pulse. But you've given her nothing. And that nothing, that unreadable void, is power? Because here's what's happening under the surface. Women test the silence not to hurt you, but to locate you. They want to feel where you stand when no one's watching. Are you empty space that bends to their moods? Or a pillar that stays still while they swirl? When you fill silence too quickly, too eagerly, you expose your need to connect. You betray your lack of inner gravity. But when you stay rooted calm, unbothered, detached without being cold, you become unshakable. And nothing draws feminine energy more than unshakable masculine silence. There's a reason the strongest men in any room speak last. They don't interrupt. They don't posture. They wait. And when they do speak, every word lands like stone. Not because their words are special, but because the silence before them has weight. You've felt this before. Think of a time someone stared at you after you said something stupid. They didn't mock you. They didn't correct you. They just looked. And in that gaze, that raw, cutting pause, you crumbled. That silence without pity. That silence that speaks louder than anger ever could. But here's the mistake most guys make. They try to fake this. They think they can just go quiet and suddenly radiate power. But you can't fake groundedness. If your silence is full of panic, she'll sense it. If your pause is built on hope, hoping she validates you, hoping he respects you, it will betray you. Power isn't about doing nothing. It's about needing nothing. That's the shift. You're not avoiding conflict. You're not withholding connection. You're just not negotiating, not proving, not chasing. You are already enough, and your silence says it for you. So here's your challenge. Next time someone pokes you emotionally, socially, romantically, do nothing. Don't flinch. Don't defend. Don't explain. Just stay present. Look. Breathe. Watch how quickly they unravel without your feedback. Most people aren't speaking to connect. They're speaking to check if they still control you. Your job is not to reassure them. Your job is to make it clear you cannot be moved just because they're uncomfortable. That's how you dominate a room without lifting a finger. That's how you speak without saying a word. And when you master this, men will notice too. They won't always like it. Some will mock you, joke about how weirdly quiet you are. But underneath that, they'll feel it. The weight. The unflinching presence. Because men recognize the man who doesn't need their attention. They feel the discomfort of being measured and not measuring up. They feel your silence the way a liar feels a camera lens. You've become a mirror they didn't ask for. That's when the game changes. You're not chasing approval anymore. You're not trying to be liked. You're not adjusting your energy to match the room. You are the energy. Still. Centered. Clear. You move when you choose, not when the world tugs. And she feels it. And he feels it. And you no longer need either of them to feel like yourself. You start to see it in subtle shifts. You walk into a space and conversations slow just a second too long. Eyes track you not in awe, but in tension. You haven't said a word, but your posture, your pace, your stillness, it rewrites the tempo of the room. Not because you want it to, but because it can't help but happen. You carry gravity. That's the first signal of power. Not attention, not noise. Gravity. And when you dominate silence, you become its source. Women notice before men do. She won't always show it. Sometimes it's a glance held too long. Sometimes it's her voice shifting an octave down when she speaks to you. Sometimes it's silence returned mirrored. Curious. But it always begins the same way, with her feeling something she can't control. She wants to interrupt the silence, but she's not sure if she should. She wants to see if you'll react. But you don't. And so she begins adjusting to you. That's the reversal. That's when she feels your power without you having to sell it. But if you're like most men, you've spent years doing the opposite. You try to make her comfortable. You think connection is something you build with words. You smile too much. You talk too fast. You spill your thoughts like a nervous car dealer, hoping one of them lands just right. But she reads all of it, and she feels nothing. Because there's nothing to push against. Nothing to respect. No boundary to lean on. You are everywhere. You are too available. Too eager. And that is the most silent way to repel her. You ever see a man speak in a courtroom who knows he's going to win? His voice doesn't rush. His eyes don't dart. His silence accuses. That's what women respond to. Not just words, but the pauses between them that say, I am not here to win you. I am here because I've already won myself. You can't learn that in charm school. You earn that by dying to every fake version of yourself that begged to be seen. And what about other men? They don't fear your silence. They resent what it reveals. Because when you stop playing the role of the socially nice guy, they have to face their own performance, their forced laughs, their loud opinions, their passive validation seeking dressed as debate. You sit in silence and it unmasks them. They'll feel the pressure to either prove themselves or avoid you altogether. But either way, they know you're not like them. You're not participating in the game. You've already left it. But make no mistake, this is not coldness. This is not the bitter silence of a man who's shut down. This is the alive, alert silence of a man who doesn't hand out his energy just because someone walked into the room. You know what you are, and you don't need others to clap for it. That's what makes it magnetic. That's what makes her lean in and say, "What are you thinking about?" Not because she wants the answer, but because your silence created a mystery strong enough to matter. Silence, when owned, becomes pressure. It creates the psychological tension that makes people reveal themselves. The longer you wait, the more honest they become. A woman in the presence of that kind of energy will start talking not because she's interested in conversation, but because she can't stand not knowing what you think. She'll try to read you. She'll project. She'll test, not out of cruelty, but out of craving. Your silence pulls the mask off her, because it tells her you're not hypnotized by her presence, and nothing awakens her desire more than that. This is the core truth in a world full of men desperate to be heard. The man who chooses when to speak becomes godlike, and not in some divine fantasy, but in raw psychological fact. Women don't fall for words. They fall for the container that makes words matter. That's what silence is. The container. The space that makes what isn't said louder than anything you could have scripted. So how do you build this kind of silence? You start by noticing your own noise. Every time you explain yourself to someone who didn't ask, every time you overlaugh at something that didn't land, every time you feel the urge to fill the void just because she looked away, you catch it, you watch it rise, and then you kill it. You sit in the discomfort. You breathe slower. You say less. You watch more. You do not adjust your essence just to keep the peace, because your essence is the peace. And yes, it's going to feel unnatural. You're going to feel like you're losing people's attention. Good. Let them leave. Let them drift. Because the ones who stay, they're staying for you, not the version of you they coaxed into being. And when she leans in again, slower this time, not because she wants to talk, but because she wants to feel what you're made of, that's when you'll know. You've dominated the silence, and now it dominates her. You won't need to announce it. You won't need to flex or perform. When you dominate silence, you become the unseen architecture of every room you enter. She feels your presence before you speak. Men adjust their posture without realizing it. People look up when you walk past, not because you're beautiful, not because you're loud, but because something about your stillness commands reality to take notice. You've become the anchor in a sea of noise. And anchors don't chase the wind. But there's a trap here too. A silence that isn't power. A silence that is avoidance. You sit quietly not because you're grounded, but because you're afraid of confrontation. You don't speak up when she crosses a line. You don't check a friend who disrespects you. You go mute when things get uncomfortable. That's not power. That's passive collapse. And she sees through it instantly. You're not intimidating. You're invisible. And invisible men are never desired. Powerful silence only works when it's built on clarity. You must know what you stand for, where your limits are, what you will and won't tolerate. You don't need to speak these things out loud. You live them. You radiate them through your restraint, through your gaze, through the unshakable way you say nothing when nothing needs to be said. But when the moment comes, when your line is crossed, that's when your words cut like razors, calm, precise, necessary. That contrast is what makes your silence feel dangerous, and that danger is what makes her respect you. She doesn't want a man who talks endlessly about boundaries. She wants a man whose entire presence is a boundary. She doesn't trust a man who constantly reminds her he's not like other guys. She trusts the one who doesn't say a word, yet never reacts when others would break. She doesn't fall for your noise. She falls when you become the stillness her chaos can finally rest inside. Let me say it plainly, women do not want to lead emotionally. When you fill the silence with need, you place the weight of your self-worth on her reaction. And she hates it. Not because she's cruel, but because it robs her of the masculine strength she craves. She wants to lean into your silence and feel her own noise dissolve. That's intimacy. Not emotional oversharing. Not endless talking about feelings. Intimacy is when she falls silent because you already are. But you must practice. Silence is a discipline. You don't master it just by being quiet. You master it by removing the impulse to reach, to explain, to justify. You become immune to the itch of approval. You learn to hold eye contact without chasing connection. You train your body to stay open and grounded even when tension rises. Your breath slows when others panic. Your voice drops when others raise theirs. That's not a performance. That's presence. And presence is what makes her crave your approval without even knowing why. Men often ask, how do I become more attractive to women? You stop trying to be. Attraction isn't something you create. It's something you allow. It's what happens when you return to stillness and let her orbit around it. The more you try to convince her, the less she believes you. But the less you need to be believed, the more she invests. Your silence is not emptiness. It's an invitation for her to feel herself more deeply in your presence. And most women have never truly felt that with a man. And here's the brutal truth: most men don't deserve that kind of silence because they haven't earned it. They think going silent is enough, but their silence is loaded with resentment, shame, or hidden desire. It leaks. It stinks. It feels like a trap. But your silence, the one forged through inner death, the death of needing her, the death of performance, the death of social masks, that silence is clean, clear, unapologetic, and it cuts through everything she's ever known. That's when you become unforgettable. Not because you were charming, yeah, but because you were silent in a way that rewired her nervous system. You didn't entertain her. You didn't chase her mood. You stood still. And in that stillness, she found something she didn't know she was starving for. A man who doesn't move for anyone but himself. There's no technique here, no pickup line, no trick. This isn't about becoming alpha. This is about becoming solid. You no longer need to chase meaning through other people. You are meaning. You don't adjust to make them comfortable. You are comfort or pressure depending on who stands before you. That's how you dominate the silence. You let the world come to you. And when it doesn't, you remain unmoved. Because the moment you become okay with silence is the moment they can no longer control you.